Peace, everyone. It's Sequoia Blue. Welcome back to Blue Alchemist Podcast, where we challenge your perspective. Today's episode is about Walter Mosley's book, John Woman. Now, Walter Mosley once said that fiction can be more dangerous than truth, because in fiction, you can sneak in the questions people are too afraid to ask. In his novel, John Woman, he does exactly that. He gives us Cornelius Jones, later reborn as John Woman, a man who teaches not history as we know it, but historiography, the study of how history itself is written. And in John's class, nothing is sacred. Nothing is simple. Nothing is safe. One of my favorite lines comes early on. Ideas are the most dangerous products of humankind. Not weapons, not money, not power, ideas. Because ideas shape all of those. Ideas last longer than kings, longer than empires. They get inside us and move us to act. Sometimes toward freedom, sometimes toward destruction. And that's why John's teachings is dangerous, because he isn't handing out answers. He's handing out ideas. At one point, John says to a student, "What we think and what we say are the foundations of our demolition. There are people who don't want me to identify them in public. They want to hide in plain sight." That line stops me every time, because haven't you felt it too? That if you speak too loudly about certain truths, you'll be silenced? There are forces in this world, institutions, individuals who survive by hiding in plain sight. And still, John speaks, even though his own life is built on secrets, even though he's hunted by the past, he keeps teaching because he knows what's at stake. But here's the contradiction. John wasn't only a teacher of dangerous truths, he was also a man of desire. And when he whispered to Carlinda in French, amour, more, to me, love, that means love. She felt the pull of his words. Simple, intimate, and impossible to resist. It reminds us that for all his grand ideas, John was still flesh and blood, capable of love, of seduction, of needing someone to belong to him. Now, there's one scene that captures his philosophy perfectly, the trash can story. John once found an old trash can in a back alley, filled with someone else's discarded life. Inside were journals, torn papers, even stains of blood. Real fragments, real memories from a stranger who had simply been thrown away. When John brings this trash can before his fellow professors, they laugh at first. They're irritated. Why waste their time with garbage? But John makes them look closer. Each scrap, each stain, each page told a different story. And the lesson was brutal. If even a stranger's forgotten trash can holds history, then how much of our world is built on stories we've chosen to ignore? Then John delivers the blow. He says Abraham Lincoln is no more important than a store attendant whose life never made the record. Whew, that shakes us, doesn't it? Because we've been trained to believe some lives matter more than others. But John says no. Every life, every fragment, every discarded scrap has weight. History is not about greatness. It's about who decides what gets remembered and what gets thrown away. It's not about the trash and trash can or the trash can. It's about the discarded voices, the hidden truths, the blood and pain buried in the corners of history. John forces us to dig into the garbage and admit that the so-called great men aren't any bigger than the ordinary people we've forgotten. There's another moment when John says, history is the primary edifice of the universe. We are bit players in events that surpass the religions, sciences, and the philosophies of the world. There's nothing too small or insignificant to a place in this tapestry. Now, that right there is both humbling and liberating. It says you matter. Your story matters. But it also says, don't get it twisted. You're a thread in a much larger weave. And the weave is stitched, not just with truth, but with lies, omissions, and choices. So what happens when the very thing that makes you human, your ability to work, to create, to belong, is stripped away? That's when John delivers another truth. The worst thing you could do to a person is to take away their ability to make a living. Better take a man's wife and children than his job. Whew. Now, that's not just philosophy. That's survival. Because in America, your paycheck is your lifeline. Take it away, and you erase someone without ever firing a shot. So what does John Woman leave us with? For me, it's this. History isn't what happened. It's what we choose to be remembered. And when we accept it blindly, we let others decide who we are, where we come from, and where we're going. But when we question it, when we ask whose voice was silenced, whose truth was erased, that's when the dangerous and liberating work begins. So, let me leave you with this. If ideas are the most dangerous products of humankind, what dangerous idea are you carrying right now? And are you brave enough to let it be heard? Or maybe Mosley himself said it best, through John anyways. The person who controls history controls their fate. The man who can tell you what happened or did not happen is Lord and master of all he surveys. So the real question is, who's been controlling your story? That's it, everybody. As always, stay curious, stay safe, and if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, like, and share, and comment. That helps me get seen in algorithms. Until next time, be safe. Peace.